Welcome to Red Light, Green Light, the podcast where seasoned leaders and top-tier executives in science, tech, pharma, finance, and innovation open up and get real with me and with you. You'll hear personal stories from key moments of their career arcs and how they've struggled and succeeded when it comes to moving audiences from the red light of risk to the green light of go. I'm Cindy Skalicky, storytelling strategist and author of the best-selling book, Red Light, Green Light, How Top Leaders Present with Polish, Get Buy-in, and Become More Influential. On this podcast, you'll hear from an exceptional invite-only lineup of leaders who've been in the room and at the table when stakes were high, decisions were hard, and their stories had to land. This is where expert minds share stories that shape the future. What's more, you'll walk away with tips you can try immediately to drive the vision of innovation with your team. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to another episode of Red Light, Green Light. I am your host, Cindy Skalicky, and every week we bring to you a leader in science, technology, innovation, and they come in to share their storytelling stories and how they emerged from usually a little rough around the edges toward getting the opportunity to learn and grow and nail it with stakeholder audiences. And I just couldn't be more excited today to have one of my very favorite people in the world join me, Jen Henderson. Jen, welcome to the show.
I'm so happy to be here.
Absolutely. Let me share a little about Jen. You probably have read about Jen already in a number of places, one of which might be chapter 1 of my book, Red Light, Green Light. It is Jen's story that I share as the on-ramp to our how-to model, which helps leaders get from the red light of risk to the green light of go with stakeholder audiences. That's the model I built, and Jen was one of our first beta testers, even before it was called the how-to model. Jen is the CEO and founder of TILT, which stands for Talent in Leave Technology. And she is running an incredible business that I'm going to have her share more about shortly. She's got around 100 employees virtually and is really changing the paid leave game inside of organizations and corporations all over the United States and beyond, I think, right? We'll find out. Jen has 2 children, and she actually ended up taking frustration and turning it into fuel, which built Tilt. So Jen, with that, I would love for you to share with us. Let's go in the time machine. Let's go backwards a little bit. Tell us about pre-Tilt Jen.
Yeah. Wild to think about how long ago that was. Yes, we've been doing this work now for 9 years. My background before Tilt is corporate America. So I spent almost 15 years in big company, big business, and I quite literally grew up professionally. For most of those years under the Starbucks umbrella was where I really kind of cut my teeth, so to speak.
Yep.
And in those years, I was able to lead a variety of teams, always in operational roles. But the impetus of Tilt really was spurred from those times, those days in corporate America. And the journey to that was my husband and I went through 7 years of in vitro fertilization trying to get pregnant. I couldn't control that part of my life. So I channeled all of my energy, effort, and distraction, quite honestly, into my career. So I was a self-described career woman through and through.
Okay.
Which was really successful for a number of years. You know, every stretch opportunity, I was your number one volunteer, you know, got really accustomed to the top of the 9 box, you name it. I was your go-to person.
Okay.
And then after 7 years, we got lucky and I became pregnant. And when I announced I was expecting, I quite literally, it's one of those snapshot memories, you know, where you can see it like it was yesterday.
Yep.
I'm sitting in front of my computer and I quite literally see meetings evaporate from my calendar. These were
Wow.
kind of those high potential meetings. These were some of those, tables that I was invited to as part of my growth and development.
Wow.
And nothing had changed other than the fact that I was now pregnant and assumed to be less committed to my career trajectory. So that was the first lived experience of, man, this does not feel good.
Right.
Uh, Turn the other cheek, just got back on the proverbial horse considering that path to pregnancy and just was just elated to be expecting. And
Sure.
then 5 years later, I became pregnant with my daughter in different company, different stage of my career. This time when I announced I was expecting, I had a promotion rescinded.
Oh,
That
man.
was the straw that broke the camel's back. Yes, I did seek counsel. Yes, it is illegal. But what so many people probably already know is pursuing a litigation path with a scenario like that requires signing something called a release. And I quite
Mm.
literally saw that to be hush money. And I wasn't willing to
Oh,
sell my story. So,
okay.
yeah, I was fueled by
Wow.
two things.
Yep.
Two things when I started Tilt. I was
Yep.
very pissed off
Yep.
and I was very naive as to how hard this was
Mhm.
going to be. So that
Mm.
was 9 years ago,
Wow.
almost exactly.
Wow. Yeah, almost 9 years ago. And then how long, Jen, after that were you beginning to ideate around the solution to this
Yeah.
problem, which became at first Career Allies and then
Mhm.
Tilt?
Yeah.
What was
2
the gap?
years.
2
It took
years.
2 years
Yeah.
of
Well, you had a baby and another toddler, and then you were
yep.
mad, and then you were thinking, right?
Yep, yep, yeah, it was a
Yeah.
scrappy time. I remember writing a blog once of, it was titled "Working in the Creases," and I remember vividly, like, between breastfeeding and navigating, yes, 2 small kids, finding those moments of inspiration to I was like a dog with a bone, I couldn't put this down, and
Okay.
so I did
Okay.
file the LLC paperwork 4 months after I had my daughter, so I knew early on I was committed, but
Okay.
how and what and where and
Right.
when took
Right.
2 years.
Yeah. Well, let's go forward a little more to some of the early meetings that you and I sat down and had
Mhm,
together. And what I remember from working with you, Jen, and for our listeners who might not know, when I met Jen, we both live in Colorado. I was just getting started with my business, On Point Communications, and I was learning what kind of public speaking is going on out there in the world after 10
mhm,
years that I did not work, right? I
mhm,
had no real visions for myself personally of returning to work. It wasn't really on my radar. I had 4 children within 5.5 years. And anyway, that's a different story. But there I was, right, getting ready to help founders like you
mhm.
get ready for investor messaging. And what I remember doing with you, which is in the book, but it's the line. Do you remember the story of the crooked line and
Mhm,
how we talked about, we straighten the line?
mhm,
And you drew
mhm,
it was like slide 3 maybe, where
mhm,
you after you had shared your personal story on slide 2, slide 3 was a crooked line about the process, and the next click was a straight line, and
mhm.
you straighten the line. So I think you're straightening that line in amazing ways. But take us back to the pitch prep and just, yeah, what have you learned about persuasion and pitching and storytelling since 7 years ago when you and I first met?
One of my favorite memories of those early days when we met was I remember telling you, very transparently that one of the commitments I made to my husband when I jumped out of corporate America and a great paycheck and a great network and all the things
Yeah.
kind of took this leap of faith that I
Mhm.
would never put our family's financial security at risk. So I would not second mortgage our house. We wouldn't go live in our parents' basement. Like none of those sensational founder stories is what I was
Mhm.
interested in. So
Okay.
that meant I had to get really scrappy and I had to figure out a lot of frugal ways to learn what I needed to learn. But
Yeah.
I distinctly remember watching a presentation you gave. I think it was for Rocky's Venture Club here in Colorado.
Yeah.
And I majored in communication. So I felt I had a little bit of a leg up
Yeah.
of
You did.
understanding the impact, the power, and the efficacy of effective communication. But I distinctly remember watching the presentation and being like, "Oh, shit, I've got to work with her and I've got to figure out how to pay for it." And
Mhm.
and secretly didn't tell my husband that that was the
Oh.
first check that I ever wrote in service of career allies. Obviously, we were way pre-revenue. We had no
Yeah,
business
of
spending money that
course.
we didn't have, but
Yeah.
I I was immediately hooked to believe and know, both from my education and experience in corporate America, but also your messaging,
Mm,
how that skill was a foundational necessity for what I wanted to do with Tilt.
mm. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's just such a fun memory, and, I'm glad that you made good on that, right? To say the
Paid
least.
off.
It
Yes,
paid off,
yes,
right. Well,
yes.
I'm curious now because, I never really expected this model to become what it has any more
Mhm,
than maybe you thought. I mean, of course, we all have big dreams about what we create,
mhm,
but I was unsure how the model would unfold, and it's been riveting and thrilling to observe it take root with leaders in any place in an organization, from startup to scale up to the C-suite. And so I'm curious, you and I haven't worked together in years, but you've
mhm.
certainly taken the core lessons from what we did together to apply it. What are you in now, Jen? I mean, I'm guessing like, yeah, board meetings, media, investor
Mhm.
relations, town halls, downstream comms with your teams. Where do you feel like your rooms are? What are your high stakes moments right now? Let's go there.
Yeah, well, you mentioned it in the book, and it is absolutely true. I pull out the methodology often and frequently, even now, 9 years into this work. You'd think I was like, knew it like the back of my hand, but no, it's very humbling. I have to
Page
reference
29,
it.
right.
I have to reference it often. Um, and one of the and I'll directly answer your question, but one of the reasons that I feel very, very lucky in the evolution of really edifying this methodology is early days of Tilt. I had to double sell. So I very
Hmm,
often had to explain why this is a problem. Why is paid leave, leave of absence, parental leave, medical leave, all leaves? Why is the
yeah.
leave landscape broken? First of all,
Mhm.
had to
Yep.
convince people of that. And then I had to convince people why we were the right solution. So this
Yeah.
double sell methodology.
Yeah.
What that gave me in retrospect, the muscles to understand is that world map of the people who
Mhm.
are listening to the message and understanding
Mhm.
um, what it is that I'm speaking to and communicating to their unique perspective on the world. So
Right.
I got a lot of those reps early on
Yes.
that I
Right.
still bring forward today. And yes, it is an application in all sorts of different forms and structures and stages, but the foundation remains true, which is what is this person's world map? What is it that's important to them?
Yeah.
And crafting the message to meet them where they're at as opposed to trying to pull them to where I am.
Yes.
And that takes
Yes.
any number of variations,
Yeah.
as you know better
For
than anyone.
sure. Absolutely. When you think about and that's just such a you say, I keep pulling this out over and over, and it's like, well, that makes sense to me because it's just this tool that's there, and every situation, every rhetorical situation is different because of
Mhm.
who the person is. And if people are pulling out the model and drawing the 5-point arc and writing the letters on it and thinking about it, it means they're trying to get into the heads of the audience, right? That's
Mhm.
the whole
Mhm.
point. And that
Mhm.
changes with every presentation any of us give. And so yes, you can achieve mastery and you can get faster at it. And without a structure, without freedom within the framework, it's harder to have a starting point. So the
Yeah.
the objective is to speed people up, right? Like get
Yeah.
faster at this, get more confident, become stronger, and then bring out more ninja moves in the Q&A. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little about Q&A skills because we didn't do any of that at least not a lot, right? You and me, but you're really good at answering questions. And I'm curious how that muscle has gone for you. It's a hard place for a lot of people. And
Mhm.
I work with a lot of people on that. What do you find works well and what doesn't?
It's my favorite part of presentation. I
Okay.
try to almost speed walk to the presentation so that we can get to Q&A. The reason
Why?
that I
Yeah.
like it so much because I don't have to be scripted. I can be purely authentically me and
Mhm.
having lived and breathed this problem for 9 years, very little catches me off guard.
Right.
I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, but very little.
Right.
So it feels much more conversational and authentic.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
one reason why I love it. The second is it tells me that there's engagement in the
Yeah.
room. So people raising their hands is one of my favorite things. There's
Yeah.
something that I triggered, and that then informs the feedback loop for next time to say,
Yeah.
okay, this is where the questions really came from with this audience. I need to
Mhm.
remember that moving forward. So
Mhm.
it helps me craft the message.
Exactly. Right.
So,
Well, that's basically an extension of the presentation. The Q&A just keeps it going, and if it goes well, right, you can tell by the questions that you are being asked how you did in the
mm-hmm,
presentation, right? It's like a
mm-hmm,
you're getting graded live. So
mm-hmm,
there's a lot
mm-hmm.
of great psychology when we stop and really take hold of what we've been asked and how we did answering it. And it's a
Yeah,
clue. Are we getting repeat
yeah.
questions that we should have been more clear on in the message itself? Or are we getting
Mhm.
those forward thinking questions that help us innovate the next version of Tilt or get us to some cool ideas that we maybe hadn't thought of, but a partner in the audience has, right?
Yeah.
So, Jen, when you
Or
observe
or
other
are there
oh, yeah.
or are there crickets? And then you're like, oh
Right.
crap, I
Yeah.
really missed the mark.
Yeah, then you're in trouble. It's like, "Is this on? Anybody can
Yeah,
hear me?"
yeah.
Right?
Been
Right.
there too. I've been there
Right,
too.
right.
Yeah.
How do you think, you've done some keynoting now, right? You've done
Mhm.
some larger audiences where the
Mhm.
keynote message is different than a
Yeah.
pitch.
Yeah.
How have you grown into that space, and what would you say to people who are doing the same thing? Any advice?
Mhm. Yeah, it's such an honor to be asked to do that. Those
Mhm.
opportunities give me a chance to story tell more than
Yeah,
anything. And
yeah.
so the keynotes that I've been able to present for are some version of depending on the audience, obviously, but
Sure.
some version of lived experience that is emotive. There's like an emotional connection that I feel vulnerable, a certain level of vulnerability. I
Mhm.
think I believe very strongly in the audience really wants presenters to win, like that
Yeah.
they're your
Yes.
cheerleaders in the room. And
Yes.
so
Yes.
giving those levels of vulnerability in a presentation, I have found almost fast tracks that like
Mm.
you're my champions in the room because
Mhm.
there's something very, I think, attractive about others being vulnerable, especially on a stage. And I think that
Yeah.
vulnerability breeds vulnerability.
It's
So the
just
people that have come up after keynotes and shared their own stories, it really is it is an impactful, reciprocity.
right. It's human, and with all the stuff in the world right now that's
Mhm.
automated and, the 2 letters AI, right? It's like we need humans to come in and be that authentic version of themselves because that's where true connection lies, right?
Yes.
So, I can
Yeah,
hear your
I think
pup.
so.
Yeah, that's so cute.
Yes, I'm going to get the pup out of our way.
Okay. We
He's
will be right
distracting.
back. Please
Yeah,
hold.
on
I was
intermission.
like, "No, that's okay." Um, well, let's talk a little about the massive opportunity that found you with the pandemic, and then let's talk about what's happening at Tilt today. So, tell
Sure.
us and our listeners how the pandemic was fuel for you as opposed to what it was for most companies, which stalled
Mhm,
them.
mhm. That double selling moment was eradicated by the pandemic. So we had a
Oh, yeah.
CHRO early days that during the pandemic that said, Jen, we've got a seat at the table it's never had before in history. And
Mhm.
for a number of years, the question was, but will it stay? Like, will Leave
Mhm.
stay at the table, so to speak? I think we can confidently say 6 years in, we're
Mhm.
staying at the table.
Mhm. Yep.
Uh,
Totally.
we're not going anywhere. Um, the pandemic really broke open, I think, what I would consider to be more of a hidden or pervasive problem, which is that leave of
Okay.
absences at organizations were and still largely are. We haven't fixed the problem entirely yet, but
Mhm.
far more a box to check, far more
Mhm.
policy as opposed to
Mhm.
human oriented. And then
Mhm.
what the pandemic did is it brought COVID-19 related leaves of absence to the table for organizations to have to comply with, where very little infrastructure existed and companies were
Yeah.
scrambling.
Okay.
So
Yep. It's like a
it was
spotlight. Mhm.
Yes. Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
it's the tailwinds founders dream of. It's,
Yeah.
legislative and compliance related, again, like sticking it it's just all the ingredients, of a really good time in history to be solving this problem.
Honestly, if it must feel like you were just sort of like the skies opened. I mean, and there was this like you were like ordained with this role in life. Like you had to just feel, I mean, it had to feel weird because
Mm,
it was such a sad and difficult time,
mhm,
right? The experience of 2020 and such.
mhm,
And for you, it was like, oh my gosh,
mhm.
this is completely put us in the express lane, the Autobahn from, maybe the bike lane at the moment. You
Yeah,
were sort of hanging out on your moto bike, right? And then boom, 3 lane changes to the left, and now you're on the Autobahn trying to get to where you need to go because so many people need your help, and there's so many, you know, places that, you needed to
mhm,
get to. So that had to
mhm.
be invigorating. How do you look back on that time of, hiring and building and do that had to be a lot of energy, and you needed probably a lot of advisors, I'm imagining, to do that lift for Tilt.
Yeah. Yeah, it has taken a true army every step of
Yeah.
the way. This
Mhm.
stopped being my idea 7 years ago, the minute
Mm.
that I had somebody else say, "I wanna be part of that solution."
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
the advisors, the investors, the leadership that we've had around the table has a all of them have had their DNA.
Mm.
I would say those early days when actually, I have a very vivid memory of driving to meet you for a session, and we had gotten, like, 12 demo requests in the period of 24 hours, and I had no idea where they were coming from. I mean, we
Oh,
hadn't spent a dollar in marketing or
yeah.
lead gen or anything like that, and
Yeah.
it was right around the pandemic time, and
Okay.
things were just
Okay.
to your point, the Autobahn was starting,
Yeah.
um, and I remember driving up Harmony to see you, for that meeting.
That's so great.
Uh, I don't think we ever got to a point where, money was falling from the sky. I think that's
Yeah.
one of the misconceptions that
Okay.
high growth startup entrepreneurs, or at least I'll speak from my experience,
Mhm.
um, it was fast. We grew, we double, triple employee count and customer count. But in the moment when you're going through it, you're just blocking and tackling one
Yeah.
problem after another. And you're
Mhm.
you're operating with a diminishing bank account, and you're thinking about the next raise as soon as you close the
Yeah.
current raise. And so
Mhm. Mhm.
we never experienced kind of I would say the wheels being greased moment.
Okay. Okay.
It was just the problem awareness has continued to expand,
Yeah.
the education in the space has continued to accelerate. But all the
That's
problems of building a company are still there.
of course, right. The honeymoon phase is long gone, right?
I
If
think
there
I
ever
missed
was
that whole
one.
phase. Yeah, I missed that whole
Right.
phase. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Well,
Mhm.
Jen, tell us about like, let's go to now, right? Like, what's happening now for Tilt? And also, like,
Mhm.
what about you and your leadership storytelling journey as the leader of the organization? So let's start with Tilt. What's happening? What's coming up? What's exciting you about product and
Mhm.
where you are now?
Yeah. We are, believe it or not, almost, supporting our 1,000th company, which is just
Amazing.
wild to think about. Wild.
Oh, congratulations.
Um, Thank you.
Yeah.
That milestone is very near term, and to support those 1,000 companies, we have about 115 now employees,
Okay.
full-time,
Okay.
fully remote distributed.
Yeah.
Um, where we're going is really interesting. So, the 14th state in the union just passed paid leave legislation last month.
Okay.
So the problem continues to get more complex. All of these states, including our home state of Colorado, have passed it differently, which puts
Okay.
our poor HR partners,
Yeah.
reeling of how do
Yes.
I do all the leaves with my team all over?
Mm.
So, good job security for us to keep doing this work for the foreseeable future.
Right.
14 states to 50 is a long way to go.
Yes.
We'll keep doing that in terms of the automation of the product. What
Mhm.
is an evolution that we've never done before coming out in 3 months is what we're calling our in-house product. If you think about, I really point this to the HR team at Patagonia, who was
Okay.
a very early discovery call that I was lucky
Mm.
enough to get connected to. And
Mm.
what struck me in that conversation with Patagonia probably no surprise to your listeners, that brand is built very strongly on a culture that from
Mhm.
early founding days has been maintained intentionally and with a tremendous amount of thought, energy, and effort. That is a, I would say, best in class culture, kind of top to
Mhm.
bottom. And so, in
Mhm.
talking to this HR team about leave of absence, great conversation around where does it hurt? Where is the pain?
Mhm.
Where would it be great? Magic wand scenario thinking, expansive thinking.
Mhm.
But at
Mhm.
the end of the day, it was we don't want to outsource it. We don't want a
No.
vendor to come in and take a leave of absence functionality from our HR team because that's
Mhm.
so they got it early, right? They understood that's so human for our team. When someone is on a
Mhm.
leave, it is typically very emotionally charged, sometimes for
Mm.
the better, sometimes for the worse.
Yes. Sure.
So they wanted this solution to get off spreadsheets, to get off the legacy providers that are very underwhelming, but they wanted it in-house. So
Okay.
here we are 7 years later. Took us a
Yeah.
little bit of time. There's a lot of
Yeah.
reasons behind that. We're gonna turn that we're basically turning the screen around. So we're gonna allow
Okay.
HR teams to facilitate leaves internally in much the same way that we have been doing it for companies for 7 years. And it's important to us that we have I think in the industry, they say dog food. I hate that expression. I like to say drink your own champagne. We have been
Yeah.
drinking our own champagne for a long time so that we can be
Yes.
very confident that this is the best in class solution as to how HR can solve
Mhm.
this.
That's exciting. That's really exciting. It's there's 2 things I thought of as I was listening to you. Number 1, Patagonia as a brand, you're spot on.
Mhm.
It's so rooted in one of the deepest stories of, that's out there. And then also
Uh-huh.
to see that you could maybe bring this technology inside almost to, allow them to house it and run it so that
Yeah.
it suits them, and that's an exciting, validating step. And so that has to feel really good, and that the line is getting straighter and straighter with each
Yeah.
turn. Right.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
I love that. Well, that's
Mhm.
really exciting. We'll have to keep our eyes open for your launch materials. I know that your team's working so hard to do
Yeah.
that. How about you,
Mhm.
Jen? What's kind of we all have a next level. I've got
Mhm.
one, you've got one. Everybody listening has a
Mhm.
next thing, a next
Yeah.
version. What's going on for you?
Yeah, I am asked very often, "Am I about done?" 9 years in seems to be a pretty typical,
Okay.
kinda, tapping out point for
Finish
founders
line,
for
right.
yeah, any variety of reasons.
Mhm,
You're tired, you're wanting to
mhm,
go on to your next, you're potentially experiencing, liquidation, whatever it might be. For us, that's just not where I'm at. I have,
mhm,
a lot of gas in the tank to keep doing this
mhm,
work. I think that, again, the, foresight of what's still to come in the legislation is certain, and that
mhm,
feels really refreshing. And then,
mhm,
our North Star, very little has, remained immovable in 9 years.
mhm,
Things evolve, things change, things that served us then don't serve us now. But one component of what we do, which is our North Star, has never shifted, and that is
right,
helping as many people as fast as possible,
right.
because when lead goes wrong, it can quite literally ruin lives. And
Oh,
so
yeah,
that North Star has, we have a long way to go. We have a
yeah,
long way to go.
yeah.
So there's
Okay,
no end in sight for me near term.
okay,
I'm really excited about this growth phase that we're in.
yeah.
And one of the questions you asked earlier that I don't want to miss the opportunity to respond to as it
Mhm,
relates to storytelling is we
mhm,
have gone through a pretty significant evolution of our team. We
okay,
had an army of 0 to 1 builders. We had
okay.
the talented, pull something out of the earth that's never existed before, somewhat of the wild, wild west, right?
Mhm,
Throw a lot of shit against the wall and see what sticks.
yep.
Now, where we are serving 1,000 customers, having 115, we really do need to mature, and we are
Mhm,
solidly in this growth phase of an
yeah,
organization.
yep.
That cultural evolution is something I'm right in
Mhm,
the middle of how do
yes.
we pull forward
Mm,
the storytelling, the connective tissue to everyone who opens their laptop every day,
yeah,
especially in a remote world,
yes,
um,
yes,
when there's 100 boxes on a Zoom screen
yes,
every Monday.
yes,
So that
yes, and
is
that's a hearty and common challenge for businesses of your size, and and any size, smaller, bigger, whatever. It's how does
yeah.
tone at the top, right? What's the tone at the top, and
Mhm.
how do those individuals carry downstream? Like I use the analogy of like a water carrier. Like here's
Mhm.
the big bucket of the story, and how are we going to train it up with the senior team so
Yeah.
that they have their buckets and then they're filling the cups underneath downstream, and then allowing people on the team to say like here's our culture and here's our core values, here's our storyline. You get to have freedom within this framework, back to the
Yeah.
freedom within the framework piece. And that's important work and it's really hard work and it takes
Mhm.
time, thought, and often a stranger to come in and help because you've been inside the fishbowl for so long
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
can't see what you can't see. And we all need I need help with that just as much as anybody else when it's on point messaging or brand, we all have to
Mhm.
get outside perspective. So that's an exciting place to be.
Yeah.
And that's a great answer. So, well, Jen, are there any words of wisdom you have as we close up for just people who feel unsure about whether or not to take a step in the direction of even working on these skills? We've had so many people really who just never really thought this was something they could get better at, and one of
Mm.
the things I've found a lot of joy in is inspiring people with hope and practical skills that it is possible, that it's not something people are just born with to
Yeah.
be a good storyteller and to
Yeah.
do well in front of others. What advice do you give to the early stage people or the fearful, nervous people out there listening?
I think the advice would be that the best ideas, the best strategy, the best solution to a problem in the world isn't going to work if you can't tell the story.
Mhm.
So don't downplay the importance of the narrative and the communication and the toolkit that you've built. Try
Mhm.
it. See
Yep.
what happens. I think it's a
Yeah.
very approachable and easy, safe
Mhm.
to try
Mhm.
methodology
Yeah.
that I just can't I can't express enough how many times I've seen founders fail with a
Mhm.
brilliant idea because they didn't pay attention to this. They didn't
Yeah.
understand the gravitas around if people don't get it, understand, or want to
Yeah.
follow, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Well said. Jen, thank you for joining me today. This has been such a pleasure. Thank you for just being a great human and friend and client and storyteller, and for agreeing to um, give the book the push on the swing in chapter one that it needed. It's been such a pleasure to share your story far and wide. And I know it's an inspiration to others. So thank you.
Oh, I'm so honored and I'm so happy we found each other 7 years
Yeah,
ago.
I
What a
know. Me
fun
too.
ride.
I know, right? High five. Well,
Yeah.
everybody, this is our downbeat for today's episode with Jen Henderson, the CEO of Tilt. I hope you enjoyed listening to her storyline. I hope it brought up some things for you and how you can improve as you move forward in whatever endeavor you are working toward. We will be back again next week with another incredible leader who's coming in to share his or her storyline around getting better at this strategic storytelling skill set. And we look forward to seeing you then. Until then, get out there, go find an audience of stakeholders you need to move from the red light of risk to the green light of go, and get out there and nail it. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.